Welcome to another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed. We're going to talk a little NBA playoffs today, and of course this Knicks Pacers series. The topic of conversation, Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportation. 800-640-6873. 800-640-6873 for reliable, on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistics partners, and mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. So call MTS for all your trucking, freight, and shipping needs. 800-640-6873. Oh, look out. Ooh, look out. Here comes another body. I'm just, I'm talking about what's probably going on in New York City right now. As the Indiana Pacers defeat the Knicks 130-121 in Indianapolis and go up 3-1 and have a commanding lead in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, when I say look out, here comes the bodies. This would be network executives in New York City. This would be NBA owners. This would be the NBA league offices. This is anybody who has a financial interest in the National Basketball Association. Thinking about the possibility of the number 25 television market, the Indiana Pacers, going up against the number 44 television market, the Oklahoma City Thunder, in the NBA Finals. And the bodies you would see would be jumping off the tops of buildings. So if you're walking down the street, if the Pacers win this series, if you live in New York City listening to Dave Smith Unleashed, just take a look overhead for your own safety. And if you see shadows coming at you, it might not be a bird. It might not be a tree. It might not be anything except, like I said, NBA executives, NBA owners, sponsors, advertisers, everybody with a financial interest in the league could be leaping to their desk, could be jumping off the tops of buildings in New York City, because this is financial catastrophe if the Knicks don't get into the finals. Now, I'm pulling for the Indiana Pacers. I've never liked the Knicks. I've never been a Knicks fan. I like the Pacers style of play. I actually think a Pacers-Oklahoma City Thunder final, which is looking like what it's going to be now, I think that would be exciting. They both get up and down. They score a lot of points. They both defend. They both shoot a lot of threes. They're fun to watch, have a lot of good athletes. You know, the Knicks are more of a grinded out, play defense. That's Tom Thibodeau's style. It's going to be 48 minutes of a fight when you play a Thibodeau team. They're going to defend. They're going to fight you. They're going to scratch. They're going to claw. They're going to play hard. They're going to have to make you earn every point and earn every victory you get. And yeah, they're down 3-1 now, but it ain't over yet. And the biggest reason is the NBA desperately wants the Knicks to get over here. It's like WWE wrestling, you know, when one guy gets over. That's what it's like here. And before Game 3, now, if you want to talk about Game 3 and Dave Smith's predictions here, I think from now on, you don't need to call me the sports god anymore. I think a more appropriate name would be the genius, the brain, like Bobby the Brain Heenan back in the day, Nostradamus, the amazing Kreskin, whatever you want to say. Because I said before Game 3, no way, no how are the Pacers going to win this game. Because if they do somehow manage to miraculously get into the finals against the wishes of the National Basketball Association, they're at worst case scenario, they're going to stretch this thing out to 6 or 7 games. And then when I saw the officiating assignments, I said, oh, ho, 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 ho. Here we go. This is going to be like the Montreal screw job against Bret Hart back in the day when he was leaving and going to the WCW and they took his championship away. And when I saw that it was Scott Foster and the Scott Foster crew heading to Indianapolis and walking onto the court for Game 3, I said, that's all, folks. It was like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. That's all. Knicks are going to win. It's no coincidence Scott Foster's crew was sent to Game 3 for that game. It's no coincidence that his nickname is the Extendor, because he's the guy that the NBA sends his crew when they need a series extended. You know, they don't want a sweep or they don't want a 5-game series because they make a whole lot more money if the series is extended, and particularly if a small market team doesn't get into the finals. So the NBA desperately needs to win with the Knicks, particularly in game 3, because if they get down 3-0, it's over. There's still a pulse. There's still a chance if they're down 2-1. So what happens? The Pacers come out on fire. The Pacers get up early. The Pacers get up by 20 points. And what did the genius, what did the brain, what did Nostradamus, what did the amazing Kreskin, a.k.a. Dave Smith, put up on Twitter, on my X account? I said, don't worry, folks. I guarantee you the Knicks are going to come back and win this game, even when they were down 20. I said, call your bookie, call your offshore sports book, get a bet down on the second half. I think the Knicks were down 13 at halftime, if I'm not mistaken. It was cut from 20 to 13 in the last few minutes of the half. I said, if you can get a bet down on the Knicks in the second half, it'll be like winning the lottery. The NBA is not going to allow the Pacers to go up 3-0, and I don't think they're going to allow the Pacers to win the series, although that might be different after tonight's game. And sure enough, the pace slowed down. And, the Pacers don't play well in a grinded-out, walk-through-the-mud type of pace that the Knicks like. And they only scored 42 points in the second half of Game 3, and they were playing in the mud. They were playing slow. They're not a good half-court team. The Knicks are much better at it than they are. The Knicks run clear-outs for Brunson. Brunson's a great player. They run clear-outs for Brunson. Cat had 20 points in the fourth quarter. Knicks are really good in the half-court, and they defend really well in the half-court, which is the trademark of a Tom Thibodeau coach team. So here we go. The pace is slowing. It's at a snail's pace, and the Knicks are chipping away. They're down 10 after 3 quarters. Then in the fourth, Karl Anthony Towns scores 20 points. The Knicks come all the way back, and they win 106-100. And then again, here came my social media posts again. What did I tell you? What did the genius tell you? What did the brain tell you? What did Nostradamus tell you? What did the amazing Kreskin tell you? The NBA was not going to allow the Pacers to win this game. Now, and then I was getting all kinds of feedback. Well, Dave, you're an idiot. Look at the box score. The free throws were about even. The fouls were about even. The referees had nothing to do with this. Oh, really? Really? Well, answer me, why did they send Scott Foster's crew in for Game 3? Why? Is that a coincidence that the extendor was sent into Game 3? The guy that they always send in? Back in the day, it was Dick Bavetta. Whenever they wanted a series extended or if they wanted a certain team to get over, Dick Bavetta's crew would be called in. After that, for years, it was Joey Crawford. Joey Crawford's crew would come in when they needed a particular result in the National Basketball Association playoffs. And these days, it's Scott Foster. And when he walked onto the court in Game 3, I said, it's over, baby. Indiana, you might as well pack it in and get ready for Game 4. But again, Dave, no, the free throws were about even. The fouls were about even. Yes, but did you see the pace of play in the second half? See, here's where the NBA gets it right. Do I think the games are rigged? No. Do I think the games are predetermined? No. Do I think the NBA will send in certain officiating crews that gives one team the advantage over the other? Absolutely freaking yes. Now, does that mean it's going to work? Sometimes one team just plays so well, despite the objections of the NBA, it doesn't go the way they want it to go. But if it's a close game, look what happened in Game 3, where the Knicks came back from a 20-point deficit. And Scott Foster has a reputation, of helping the road teams and a slow style of play when his crew is working. And the NBA has the analytics down to a science. Every referee has tendencies. Some referees call a lot of fouls. Some referees swallow their whistles and let them play. Some referees, the game is more up and down when they're working. Other referees, there's a lot of whistles and the game is slow and it's at a snail's pace. See, I think that's why Scott Foster was brought in. His crews, the game tends to slow down. And that's exactly what happened in the second half when the Pacers only scored 42 points. They're walking the ball up the court. They're having to play in the half court, which they're not good at. They're jacking up a lot of threes. They only shot 20% from three-point range. They shot 40% in Game 4, but only 20% in Game 3. Now, why was that? Well, the biggest reason was they're walking the ball up the court and playing in the half court and having to jack up a lot of threes up against the shot clock. They weren't getting good shots. Where they're really good, as they were early in the series and as in Game 4, when they scored 130 points, running, fast break, penetration, then kick it out to the three-point shooter. See, that's how they get you, because then you get a wide open look that way. But when they're passing the ball around and, in the half court, and the Knicks are a really good half court defensive team, you're just not going to get a good look. It's going to be contested threes. That's why they only made 20%. That's where a guy like Scott Foster comes in and can get one team over. Now, I'm going to give you a little history lesson now. You know how many times two small market teams have met in the finals in the history of the NBA? If LeBron wasn't playing? Zero. The Utah Jazz made the finals in 97 and 98. Small market. But who were they playing? Were they playing the Sacramento Kings? Were they playing the Portland Trail Blazers? No. They were against Michael Jordan and the New York Knicks. Were they playing the Indiana Pacers? No. 98, the Jazz made the finals again. Were they playing the Pacers? Were they playing the Atlanta Hawks? Were they playing the Hornets? Nope. Were they playing the Milwaukee Bucks? Nope. Again, Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, and the Chicago Bulls, guaranteed gonzo ratings. See, the NBA is okay with getting one small market team in there. You're playing Jordan and the Bulls? Yes. Remember the Indiana Pacers made it in 2000. But who were they playing? Shaq, Kobe, Phil Jackson, and the Lakers. Two small market teams have never met in the finals. That's not a coincidence. Because the NBA loses tens of millions of dollars if there's two small market teams. You know how much money they're going to lose here? If it's number 25 TV market, Indianapolis, against number 44 TV market, Oklahoma City. Oh, I hate to even think about it for the National Basketball Association. They've got to do sponsor buybacks. They're going to deal with it. Would be the lowest rated series in the history of the NBA Finals, for sure, with those two teams playing. And they got to do sponsor buybacks. Tens of millions of dollars it will cost the NBA, which is why I don't think it's over yet. I know the Pacers are down 3-1, and they've got 2 out of the next 3 at home if it goes that far, but the NBA is desperate. Scott Foster might have to work all 3 of these games. And by the way, the NBA made a big mistake in Game 4. Why wasn't Scott Foster working Game 4 in Indianapolis? See, that the NBA made a mistake there. He should have worked Game 3 with his crew and Game 4 to ensure that the Knicks got over. But now the Knicks are in trouble. We could see history this year. We could see the first 2 all small market NBA finals in the Indiana Pacers and probably the Oklahoma City Thunder. Fun to watch? Yes. Good for basketball fans? Yes. Would I be watching? Of course. Will the average Joe, the person who's a casual NBA fan, maybe the person who only watches the playoffs or the finals every year, will they tune in? Hell no. They can't name you one player on the Thunder or the Pacers. Now, if it's the New York Knicks, well, a lot of people are from New York. I'm going to watch these finals. My New York Knicks are playing. How about that? They haven't been good in a long time. So I know it's 3-1, but it ain't over yet, because never forget what the NBA wants. They need the Knicks to get over. They need the Knicks in the finals. They need that number 1 TV market. They don't want to lose tens of millions. Oh, look out! I almost get hit by a body flying off a building there in New York. NBA executives. Well, don't panic yet. Don't panic yet. There's still time. Teams have come back from 3-1 before. Nobody's ever come back from 3-0. Teams have come back from 3-1. Boy, Tyrese Haliburton, how good was he in Game 4? 32 points, 15 assists, 12 rebounds, a triple-double, 11 for 23 from the floor, 5 for 12 from 3. Pascal Siakam, 30 points, 11 for 21 from the floor, 3 out of 4 from 3. Well, he's a really good player. Jalen Brunson, as usual, 31, and Cat had 24. And by the way, Mr. Mark Cuban, he's been running his mouth a lot this year because he sold the team to the Adelson family, the Las Vegas casino magnates, last year. Sold the Mavericks. Well, I would have never made that Luka trade. Boy, if I were still there, I wouldn't have done it. Criticizing the Dallas Mavericks and Nico Harrison, the general manager. If Mark Cuban owned this team, I would have never made that trade. Oh, really? Okay. All right. You want to pat yourself on the back, Mark? Who let Steve Nash walk away as a free agent when you could have kept him? That would be a guy by the name of Mark Cuban, and he went on to win back-to-back MVPs and became one of the great NBA players of all time, one of the great point guards of all time. Jalen Brunson used to play for the Mavericks. Hey, Mark Cuban, who let Jalen Brunson walk away as a free agent? That would be a Mr. Mark Cuban 2 years ago. You think they could have used Brunson last year when they lost to the Boston Celtics in the finals? If they have Brunson and Kyrie Irving and Luka, do they win that series? I think, hell yes, they do, if they had all three of them. So, Mark, while you're patting yourself on the back, well, I wouldn't have made the Luka trade. Well, if I were there, it never would have happened. Yeah, who let Steve Nash get away? Who let Jalen Brunson get away, Mr. Cuban? That would be you, Mr. Hypocrite. So now we go to a Game 5. Knicks are at home. I tell you what, if the Knicks win Game 5, all the pressure's on the Pacers in Game 6. Because if they lose that Game 6 at home, they got to play a Game 7 on the road. And guess what? The NBA offices are in New York. Adam Silver's office is in New York. The owners will be gathered there. How much do you want to bet Scott Foster will work Game 7? Everything will be working against the Pacers. If it gets to a Game 7, no chance. No chance for the Pacers. So I would advise you close them out in Game 5 and end this thing. Because Game 6 is going to be a pressure cooker at home. If you don't win that one, you're not going to win the series. I would advise the Indiana Pacers to win Game 5. So it'll be fascinating to see how this goes and be fascinating to see what happens here. Dave Smith Unleashed brought to you by MTS Transportation, 800-640-6873 for reliable, on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistics partners, and mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off your shipment. So this is going to be fascinating to see where this goes. And, of course, I'm going to be doing more shows covering the NBA playoffs and all the things in the world of sports, in the world of politics, in the world of true crime. We hit on everything here on Dave Smith Unleashed, which is why we are so fast growing. So thank you to all of you. Hell, less than 2 months. We've got about, 2,300 subscribers already. We're over the 2,000 mark in less than 2 months. All kinds of views, getting close to 15,000. So we're growing by leaps and bounds, and that's thanks to you. So thanks to everybody for subscribing. Thanks to everybody for viewing, and keep it up. We appreciate it, and we love you guys tuning in. So follow me on Twitter, and I'm always posting on there when the next Dave Smith Unleashed is going to be posted, at Dave Sports God. Check with me there, and then I always talk about when the next show is going to be posted, what the topic is going to be. Wow. Can't wait for Game 5 in New York, Pacers and the Knicks. Will Scott Foster be? If Scott Foster's there, you might as well make the reservations for Game 6, baby. It's Dave Smith and Dave Smith Unleashed. We'll talk to you next time.